Hi, guys, it's Brooke here. I have a super quick favor to ask. When you have a moment, please take just a second to give this podcast a 5-star review. This will help me to continue the podcast and continue to bring these resources to the community. Thank you so much for that 5-star review.
You didn't pick this journey, and I see you in that. You may never understand why this is the journey you're on or why this was handed to you, but I would encourage you to, God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. And so for whatever reason, you have what it takes. You keep showing up, and your resilience and courage is it doesn't go unnoticed, and it's very impactful. And I think, just keep stacking those small wins. Like some days you're not
Yeah,
going to want to, some days you're going to be like, I don't know how I'm going to get to tonight. I have those days.
yeah,
And I think, when you look back and you're like 10 years down the road, you'd be like, how did I get here? And you start
right.
to see like God had his hand in it. And there is a lot of good. And like going back to your day can be special when you look for God.
Hey there, it's Brooke, and welcome to Finding Hope on the Spectrum, where I have heart to heart conversations with parents, professionals, and autistic individuals sharing personal insight and life experiences. Together, we dive deep into supports, programs, and stories that offer inspiration, insight, and most importantly, hope for the neurodiverse community. Before we begin with today's topic, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. And if you know someone who this would be helpful for, please pass it along. Remember to always stay curious, be kind, and have an open heart. All right, let's get started. I'm super pumped about this conversation today. Today I have on Zack Ponder. He is a former special education teacher, husband, father, small business owner, and writer. He splits time with his family in northern Idaho and southern California. And super excited to have you on today. Welcome, Zack.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, for listeners who may be new to your work, can you share a bit about your journey and what led you into special education? And I love that we have so many similarities in San Diego and the special ed world. And I'd love to have you share just a little bit about how you got into it and also podcasting with your podcast Unspecial.
Yeah, so special. I never, growing up, I was never around special needs community. Had no idea. Like even going through high school, I was never around it. Growing up in church and youth groups, there was a couple kids who maybe had Asperger's. I don't know, but it wasn't something that was on my radar at all, and it didn't happen until it was by I mean, I think it was God showing me where I needed to put my energy. But I ended up in Central California, and I was leading the church we were going to, and I needed some more money. So I started applying for sub jobs in the local school district. And the first sub job I got was to be a paraeducator sub role, and I had no idea what it meant. I just signed up. I'm like, all right, this is the only thing that came through. I'll give it a shot. And then I remember I walked into that class and I was looking around like, this is this is different. I don't know what I was expecting kids to be like sitting at their desk and doing their thing. And then a little kid came up and kicked me in the shin. And I was like, what is going on? And then he ran out of the class, and the teacher's like, go get him. And then I'm running all over the playground all day. And then I remember getting home, and I was telling my wife, I'm like, that was so much fun. Like all those kids it was so interesting. And I was very intrigued on like, what is going on? Why are they acting, behaving like this? And then from there, I got some more sub jobs. And that was with general ed classes, and it was so boring. I couldn't handle it. I was falling asleep. I couldn't deal with their entitlement and the attitudes, and even the more higher functioning classes. I forget what you even call it, or like the push-in ones with
Right.
the inclusion. I was kind of bored in those too. I really enjoyed the life skills classrooms with intense behaviors, intense needs. The challenge of it was exciting. And so then I fell in love with it. So I got my credential, taught for 5 years, life skills class. I taught all levels, started in high school and then went to middle school and then went to adult transition and then back to high school. And yeah, from there, I left teaching. We moved up to Idaho and I taught for a year, but they don't pay much, so I had to find other ways. So I started a construction business, but special education and the students and the families, they never left me. And I just I knew I'd get back into it at some way. And fast forward, now I have the Unspecial podcast. I've had it for a year. This is my way of staying in the community, and I've always had a desire to help the parents. Parents, I think, are overlooked and underappreciated. Just their journeys and how they go about life and their courage and resilience in raising their kids. And I was always intrigued to hear their full story from the very beginning till where they currently are. So that's kind of the space on that podcast for that. What else? I'm kind of rambling here.
No, I think it's great. I think that, I mean, it's amazing that you fell into it in such an organic way, and you really
Yeah.
were just being placed in that environment. I mean, that was what you were meant to be doing, and that was definitely something I think God had a hand in. And I think it's I love hearing stories like that, because it's neat to hear people's journeys of how they ended up in this field and this direction. And it's a beautiful
Right.
thing.
It was kind of like the one thing I jumped around many careers after college, trying to find what I was passionate about, and what I wanted to do. And working in the schools and with students was like the one thing I didn't have to try at.
Yeah.
It was just like it was natural for me. It was easy for me. I could see the humor in my students, and I thought I would teach forever, but God had other
Yeah.
plans. And
Yeah.
the burnout's real for sure, especially in a life skills class. But yeah, so here we are now.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, and here you are still helping and blessing the field and in your work. And so I'm excited for you to share more about all the things you're doing and what's upcoming for you too. And but before we get into that, I know that you've, shared publicly on your Instagram page about your wife's cancer journey and being a father of four. You're very busy too. How has your personal life shaped the way that you show up as an educator, an advocate, and man of faith?
Oh man, I think it's definitely instilled a lot of empathy in me to be able to meet families where they're at. Because even though I don't have a special needs child, we've been on a pretty intense journey for the last 2 years with my wife fighting cancer, and it's made us leave North Idaho. Now we're in San Diego. Flipped our entire world on its head, and a journey that we didn't expect, obviously. But through it, and it's ironic starting the podcast. I mean, I started it, I've been wanting to start it for like 5 years. So I sat on it forever. But it was when we were in the hospital, and I think my son was just born. Yeah, he was just born. So that's how we found out my wife had cancer. She was pregnant with our fourth son, and at 25 weeks, she was diagnosed with cancer. He stayed in for 4 more weeks, and then he spent 9 weeks in the NICU. And it was during his NICU stay, we were in the hospital for a long time. And if you've ever done that, which I'm sure a lot of listeners have, it's pretty boring. And it's like every single day is the same. And my wife, one of the days was like, "Hey, I think you should start your podcast." And I was like, "I don't think this is really the right time for that." But she's like, "No, I mean, you're bored. Might as well go for it." So I started it there. And the whole mission behind that is just to hold space for parents to be seen and heard. But what was ironic in the timing of it, and definitely God's hand on it, is hearing parents' journeys through special needs and their child is very inspiring for me on the other side of the mic.
Mhm.
And to see their courage and resilience and how they go about life and just show up every single day. Like hearing them motivated me to do the same. So, yeah, I think, just personal life, like being just showing up every day.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be perfect. Like half the time it's not. Most of the time it's not.
Yeah.
But just the ability to show up and then see other parents show up, we're all fighting the fight together.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that sounds amazing that they were able to here you're giving them a platform to share and then they're giving you that inspiration.
Totally.
It's such a
And they,
special thing.
and I've been at it for 2 years, but many of these families, they're doing this for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And presumably mine will pass over at some point.
Right.
And then, but like, that's not the same for these families. So
Right.
they're definitely have given me purpose for sure in this season.
Yeah, I love that. That's huge. And I know they appreciate that opportunity. It's very therapeutic to be able to share your story and resilience and they're warriors, these families.
Yeah.
And they step up to the challenge. And
Right.
I want to talk about your special ed experience, and because I know you have so much knowledge with IEP process and just with your experience in those classrooms. And I love that you loved that your population that you were working with. I mean, it's such a special thing to have that passion. And I had a similar experience, and when I got into the field, and within 2 weeks, I was like, this is it for me. I knew it,
Yeah.
and was so fortunate to have had that opportunity. But when you look back on your years in the classroom, what were some of the most impactful or transformative moments that you experienced with your students?
For me, it was the ability to see them experience life like the rest of us. There's especially for the population I was with, there's so many misconceptions and misinformation that they don't experience life. They're not there in their head because of their outward quirks or whatever. But the most transformative is hands down when I would take them into the community. And we would do it every week. And, a lot of times we were told not to. Like the administration was like, this is crazy. You shouldn't be going to the beach with your students. But I was like, they're fine. And every time they would step up, it's like once they were able to feel normal, quote unquote, or like treated equally
Yeah.
like everybody else, like they knew it. And so, we would take hour-long sprinter rides from Escondido to Oceanside
Yeah.
and have a picnic on the beach and then go
Oh my
back to
gosh.
Escondido. And then we would have to take the bus back to the school. I mean, it was a full day excursion. And on the outside
Yeah.
looking in, there, people just don't give these guys enough credit, or they don't presume competence. They don't, expect the abilities, but seeing them step up and just giving them space and opportunity to show that, it was always like they would blow me away every day.
Yeah. Yeah. That's huge. I mean, it's such a huge message to share. And I'm so glad you shared that because I think it's definitely something that is needed more in our education system and
Yeah.
community, just to when you presume competence and when you give them opportunity to have an authentic, meaningful experience or they feel valued, they're going to rise to the occasion as anybody would.
Right. Right.
It's actually quite logical, but
Totally.
but
I don't know
not
what it
always
would
the
take.
norm.
Like, just take educating people, or I don't know. Because I
I
mean,
don't know.
the joy they bring you once you just give them a chance.
Yes.
It's like everyone says the same thing. Even like buddies, they're just like, every time I hang out with somebody with Down syndrome or autism or whatever, like I just walk away feeling so like energized and happy.
Yeah.
because they're working with what they got, and that's what you're gonna get.
Yeah. Right. I know. And if you can just slow down and see them for that, that just all their abilities,
Right.
get a beautiful response. I have a client that is a speller, and
Nice.
he wants to be an advocate, and we're helping him right now build
Oh.
out an Instagram page. It's coming, and so that he can be an advocate for non-speakers. And
Oh wow.
he is constantly sharing, tell people, to speak to us, not, to non-speakers, the way that you guys speak to me, because his
Yeah.
team speaks to him as though he is the brilliant man that he is. And,
Right.
and he sees it and he wants others to know that. And,
Yeah.
I think it's going to take those non-speakers to also coming out and telling everybody to wake up and realize, there's power in this.
Yeah. That reminds me. I was having challenges with one of the students. He was a very challenging student. I learned a ton from this guy. Like I'll never forget him. I wrote about him in my book. I think he got a couple chapters, but he was violent, and like he opened my eyes up into how intuitive these guys are, because he would like repeatedly hit one particular staff during the same lesson in the same situation every day. And after a week, I would sit back and I would observe and observe and observe. And then I was like, oh, I know why he's doing this. So I had the staff sit down. And I'm like, hey, I know he's punching you every day at the same time. Let me show you what you're doing, and then see if you want to punch me. And she was just getting in his personal space, avoiding all boundaries, talking to him like a baby, and just not giving him time to process. And then after like 20 seconds, she's like, "Come on, can you please stop?" She's like, "I get it. I get what you're saying." But
Incredible.
thankfully, that was early on too. And so
Yeah.
I had a bunch of moments like this early on where I'm like, all right, these guys are smart. Like they know. And the more we
Yeah.
can just treat them that way, the
Yeah.
better off they are.
Right. Well, and I think what's so significant about what you just shared, and I saw that in your book too. I enjoyed sitting by the fire yesterday reading your book. It was wonderful. And as the snow was coming down here, but you really take the time to reflect and notice patterns and then make adjustments based on what you
Yeah.
notice, and not just see it as a behavior, but go deeper.
Hmm.
And I think that is why you were successful in helping your students, because one of the main reasons, I might guess anyhow, not being there, but I think that is so powerful. The way you just described that, to be able to help your staff experience what that feels like, because it's
Right.
hard. It's hard to step back and do that. But when you do, you can really gain a lot of knowledge.
Oh, 100%. And I think, yeah, I mean, I would go, probably most teachers, probably you too. You go home after a long day and you're like, why did that go wrong? What happened here? And then I get competitive. I mean, I've played collegiate golf. And so and in golf, I was always reflecting on rounds, like where could I? So it kind of played into life and in the classroom. It's just like, how can we continually improve? And even though it looks like, sheer chaos,
Yeah.
just how do we like navigate this and have an effective classroom where kids can be comfortable and learn.
Yeah. It's huge. I mean, you got it. You really understood it to process it at that level. And I can see how you could be a resource to others through
Yeah.
through your platforms that you're creating. And I'd love to have you talk about kind of some of the biggest challenges that you faced, and not necessarily just with the students, but just with the system. I've seen some of your posts on Instagram or reviews or podcast shares on kind of some of the limitations you experienced in the special education world.
I think the biggest challenge within the special education system is for teachers is instructional staff. The instructional aides, the paraeducators, there really is no training at all. And it's up to the teacher to train, but the teacher is, running the classroom, writing IEPs, doing all of it. And a lot of it, like, you just don't have enough time to train certain staff members. And most of the time, the staff members, they're big-hearted and loving and want to
Yeah.
help, which is awesome. But then again, it's not, because it doesn't always work. And I'm speaking from a life skills perspective. A lot of the staff that I worked with, I had to be very strategic with them. And I would tell them up front, like, hey, I don't have time to teach you to be better at your job. I'm just going to place you where you're good. And that's going to help us get through the day. And most of the time they were cool with it. If they were like thinking of advancing from paraeducator to be a teacher, then we would go about it a little bit differently. And then a lot of times, certain staff sets off students. And so then you're dancing that game. And then you got six behavior violent students in one classroom, and you expect their behaviors to get better. Which
Right.
it's just like logically so
Yeah.
I mean, I would do inclusion as much as possible, mostly to electives, but get them a little piece of life and split up the classroom. And then, like we were mentioning, one of the biggest challenges in the education system is just they're just misunderstood.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're the vibe and the reputation is they don't know what's going on. But
Yeah.
they definitely do.
Yes.
And I think
Oh, yeah.
if we can convince and educate more people in that matter, but I think if they just hung out in the classroom for a day, they would understand.
Right.
But it's just
Yeah.
opening people up to that possibility
Yeah.
would change a lot in the school system. But thankfully for me, life skills, a lot of the times administration doesn't want much to do with it. And it's kind of like, all right, if we don't hear from you, great day.
Right.
Which was nice as a teacher because I could literally do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's like, well, how effective is that? If you don't have a principal that has special ed background, they're probably not going to promote the special needs, special ed services, or, get awareness to campuses.
Right.
I think they should be in the mix of everything. However, there's just
Yeah.
not enough skilled professionals to make that a
Yeah.
reality.
Right.
And then now I'm thinking the credential program, I could use a lot of shifting and changing. And I think that deters a lot of people from becoming a special education teacher because you got to, especially in California, you got to go through all the schooling, all the tests. And by the time you're done, you're like $80,000, $90,000 in debt. And then you're making hardly anything. Like,
Right.
I think a good solution would be experiential. Like, get them in the classroom and let's do all of your schooling while you're teaching. And fortunately for me, that's kind of how it went because I was a paraeducator for a year. And then I went through an online national university. But while I was getting my credential, I was an intern teacher. So I had I was able to still make teacher money while in school, but those tests
Yeah.
were hard. I mean, I failed them like 5 times. Let's be honest. U.S. history and world history, that's a hard test.
Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's a real full transformation of the system that needs to happen, and it's a tough thing to do. It's a real tough thing to
Right.
do.
Because then
But
you get, people who are good at the schoolwork, and then they get into a classroom and they're
right.
like, I'm really bad at this. But they've already gone through 3 years of schooling. So now they're like stuck. Like, well, I
Yeah.
guess I have to be a teacher now, even though I'm not that great at it.
This show is brought to you by Therapeutic Approach to Growth. therapeutic approach to growth helps families with relationship and behavioral needs. Their holistic programs are individualized to honor and respect each family and their autistic son or daughter's sense of self through programs such as relationship development intervention, naturalistic ABA, and animal-assisted services. If you're finding yourself frustrated or discouraged with your current behavioral programs and would like to see more long-term meaningful growth for you and your family, then contact TAG today at www.tagforgrowth, that's tagforgrowth.com, to learn more about how to schedule a consultation or how they can offer you the help your family needs, whether in person, remotely, or in a school setting. Again, that's www.tagforgrowth.com.
Yeah, and those teachers need the help too. And
Right.
it's a tough battle for sure.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about the IEP process too, because I know that that's something that you've shared about as well, and have shared the story of this mom that you checked in on. I'd love to have you share that story and kind of what's going on in the IEP process.
Oh man. IEPs is it's a very daunting process for parents, especially early on in the journey, because they don't know anything about them. Nothing. It's a meeting once a year, or probably more, depending on, the needs. But where parents get in this meeting and they're told everything their child does wrong. Unless, you can go about the meetings differently. I mean, the teacher ultimately is in charge. The case manager runs the show. But what I experience is most parents come into these meetings already defeated. They're fearful, they're on edge because they've been told over and over again everything their kid does wrong. And it's a very emotional meeting. And I think middle school is where it is the most intense. From what I've found teaching all levels, is that middle school year, it seems like it's the time in their kid's life where it's like reality hits. Their trajectory is going here, or it's going to go away. And so it's highly emotional, especially the middle school I taught at is a very litigious district. And I'll never forget getting out of one of those meetings, cameras everywhere, recorded. And the parent just broke down crying. And I remember watching her like, oh my, this is intense. I totally understand. And at that time I had 2 kids. So I was able to be in a father position and think, this is really, really intense. And then I just asked her, how are you okay? How are you doing? And that's when it hit me that these parents need so much more support. All the attention goes to the kid, which they need the attention and they need all the therapies and everything. But the parents also need the same amount of support. Yeah. And then, going through multiple IEPs. I think for one parent, I had an IEP that year in middle school. I think I had an IEP every single week.
Wow.
There was just
so intense.
Yeah, there was a lot of it wasn't, as a teacher, you're kind of the middleman to the administration. So a lot of the times the parents have qualm with administration. And it seemed like it always centered around placement because I was life skills. And so a lot of the times parents didn't want their child in life skills. And, sure, for good reason. But yeah.
It's a lot.
It's fun.
That's a lot. That's a whole nother layer to add to the whole teaching world, that you're getting into it, and then you have to do IEPs.
On top of that, teachers have zero training on IEPs. Like even the first handful I did them all wrong. I remember it was a Spanish student, and I didn't know you had to have a specific Spanish speaking IEP translator. So I pulled the secretary from the office.
Uh-huh.
That's illegal. Like,
She speaks Spanish. This'll do.
yep. And so
Wow.
there was a lot of, it's kind of like, learn on the fly.
Yeah.
And hopefully you don't get sued because you're doing the meetings wrong. And then you come across advocates, which is a whole nother ball game. But I think the biggest thing I learned now looking back is as a teacher, I was taught get in the meeting, get through the meeting, get a signature at the end.
Mhm.
But it's so much deeper than that. Like there's so much emotion going on. And this is their
Yeah.
child's future.
Right.
And you can't just like talk about that in 90 minutes. So it was kind of putting it in a position where it was like teacher versus parents,
Hmm.
where that's all wrong. It's teacher with parents. And you
Hmm.
should be working as a team for the best outcome of their child.
Yeah.
But I think it kind of put it in a position where it's contrary.
Right.
And that's where you have a lot of issues in classrooms and IEPs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting as you were sharing that. I'm on the other side of it where I'm helping my families. I'm not an advocate, but naturally they'll be sharing about their IEPs. And I've been to IEPs to support families before just to share strategies and recommendations on goals and things. But how much uncertainty those IEPs create for the parents is unreal.
Yeah.
And oftentimes they don't know where the teachers or the administration is coming from. They're guessing. It's hard to know. Like, are they being truthful or are they trying to get me to switch placements or,
Right.
it's so stressful. And there's a lot of unknown on the parent
Hmm.
side. And
And then the jargon. There's so many special ed terms.
yeah, it's overwhelming. I know
Yeah.
there would be, it would be nice to have some way to bridge that gap
Right.
for the families and the teachers.
Yeah. I have come February, I've been working on an IEP course for parents. And that's the mission behind it is for parents to show up to these meetings equipped to
Yeah,
better go through these meetings and hopefully help them. And so, yeah, that'll be coming out. Hopefully, I'm having an
great.
advocate review it right now because my teacher language isn't always
Yeah,
line up with advocates. So,
right. Yeah, I love that. That's
yeah,
fantastic. And that's going to
yeah.
be an online course that they can access, like a recorded course, or is it going to be a live course?
It's recorded, so it's 10 modules, 10 sections of the
Awesome.
IEP, and it just kind of rocks you through. I think each module has three lessons. One of them's me talking like 5, 7 minutes, and then the other one's it's a reading, but then there's be some worksheets.
Okay,
So I
great.
think, it'll be time consuming and take a little bit of time on the parent side, but once you get through it, I think you're going to be able to show up a lot more confident in these meetings.
Fantastic. Great.
Yeah.
Well, we'll make sure to share how people can find you and find those future resources as well.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure to get that information out there. That's fantastic.
Yeah. I've never seen one out there. Maybe there is. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen it from a teacher's perspective. I've
Oh, right.
seen like special ed attorneys and, advocate maybe more styles like that,
Hmm.
but not from your lived experience. I think you
And
have a
it's
unique experience.
definitely it's not super complicated. I'd really made it simple. And that's just how I
Yeah.
process and think anyways.
Yeah, that's perfect. I mean, that's what the
Right.
families need, right? They
Yeah.
don't need to be more overwhelmed with having to learn more terms and memorize them all and know how to
Right.
apply them, you know. So, yeah, I think that that's going to be huge. And, from an educator's perspective, I know we kind of touched on this a little, but I'd love to have you share kind of what are the most misunderstood aspects parents of a child with disabilities or additional needs experience.
I think, yeah, like we've talked about, they're just misunderstood. I think the more time and a willingness from society to just be open about and kind of get rid of any preconceived thoughts or opinions that they've heard online, because online could be a very wild arena for any of this stuff. but just that the being misunderstood. And then also, I think it's very overlooked that we're talking about families and parents, children. You know, you hear autism thrown around so much, and it's become just a term. But behind that term is a parent's child. And
Yeah.
so I think when we can have more empathy and sympathy, realizing, especially if you're a parent yourself, like if somebody were to talk about my children the way a lot of society talks about a special needs family's child, like that's incredibly difficult. And so I think the more hope and positive language we can use would go a long way for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's that, and especially through that process with the school when you're trying to get the paperwork done and get that signature,
Right.
it is, and you have to talk about all the things the child's doing wrong and their deficits. It's just heartbreaking, I think, as a
Yeah.
parent to receive that, to have to sit and listen to that, even though they know they need to do it and they need to make sure it's done right.
hmm And on the teacher educator's perspective on that, it's, you go through so many of them, and I was guilty of this. You kind of going through and writing so many IEPs and sitting through all these meetings, you kind of get in the mindset of like it's just like a rote task that you have to do. And
Yeah.
you do lose sight of there's a child behind everything you're saying. And so, I mean, I had to remind myself of that a lot.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I mean, if there's anything you could share too, that would, like, if there was one thing you could share that would help have that, maintain that perspective of, you're dealing with somebody's child and you're,
hmm
and you're also like got so much on your plate as an educator. How do you balance that and how do you maintain that focus?
Right. I think it's, yeah, you gotta, I mean, burnout's real for teachers for sure. I guess if you don't have a strong enough why, you're probably gonna burn out. And then just, I don't know, classroom management and learning how to do it all.
Yeah, it's quite a process, that's for sure. Well, I want to talk about your faith as well, because I love that you openly share about your Christian faith and how that's influenced your work. And I know you mentioned that you have created a 90-day devotion. So let's talk about that and share a little bit more about what that's all about.
Yeah, super excited for that. Well, I'm even more excited for that to come out than Special Days, to be honest. I mean, Special Days was a fun write. I never knew I was a writer. I just, of over 5 years, wrote Special Days, and it's 12 stories from the classroom, and I relate it back to the Bible and how when I looked for God in my day, every day became special. So that was a fun write, and I finished it actually in the hospital a year ago, and it's been out since July. But Happy Days is the 90-day devotional, and I split it with my dad. He wrote 45 days and I wrote 45 days. He's been a pastor my whole life, so his writings are definitely, let's say, more theological, and mine are like knowledge. But it's a follow-up to Special Days. I mean, we reference Special Days quite a bit throughout, but it's just a simple 90-day devotional. It probably takes like 5 minutes to get through a day. Has some reflection questions, and I think it can really be powerful for parents to just sit down and my ultimate goal is to get small groups going with families.
Okay,
And so
nice.
then we can like kind of model it after a church, everyone's like four or five families in a small group, but specific to special needs, I think would be super powerful because nobody understands the journey unless you're doing it. Like,
Yeah,
and especially for me, even like going through a cancer journey, like no, nobody gets it and they never
yeah,
will unless you've done it.
right,
And then even if you have, it's still probably different.
right. Absolutely. No, I love that. That's fantastic. And where can people find your devotional?
It'll be on Amazon.
Oh, great. Okay.
It'll be on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart. Yeah, but Amazon is probably the easiest.
Okay, fantastic. And we'll make sure to include that in the show notes as well. And that's going to be released soon, or is it already released?
It's gonna be released January 1st.
Oh, great. Okay. Well,
Yep.
then we will make sure by then, by the time this is released, this episode, then that will be released. So that's perfect. Perfect
Yeah.
timing.
It's Happy
Great.
Days, DAYZ.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, great. And then I know that, you've shared a lot about your faith, and I'd love to have you just have an opportunity if there's any particular scriptures or spiritual practices or moments of prayer that have sustained you during hard seasons.
I think there's two. I mean, it changes, but there's two right now that are playing big. Psalm 46:10. Be still and know that I'm God, which is such a hard verse to grasp, especially for me, somebody who wants to fix everything, somebody who wants to do stuff, and like just be able to accomplish. But I feel like in the this place in the journey that we're in, it's like all I can do is be still and just realize like I can't control the outcome. I can't do more things to affect any change. I can't,
Yeah.
like muster up enough knowledge and wisdom to know where to go next on this journey. It's essentially I have to be still, and it drives me crazy,
Yeah.
to be honest. But it is comforting on the other side because I know I can be still, and in God's timing, He's going to show me what's next.
Yeah.
And, just that other side of it, like He's God, I'm not.
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like I feel like it's easy when you go through tough times and suffering to try and play the role of God because you act out of fear
Yeah.
and want to control it. So, and then the other verse I put in my stories yesterday, Romans 8:28. And I think it says, "For God works all things out together for good to those who love Him and are called according to His purpose." But we get so tripped up on this word good. And, our definition of good is not the same definition of good to God. And, good, we think it's going to benefit us in some way, whatever the outcome is. And it's going to be how we want it to turn out. But a lot of times it doesn't turn out how we want it to. And so when God promises He'll work all things out to better for good, it's probably not how we think good is going to be. But then going back to be still and know He's God, it's like those are some, yeah, real real life moments that I've had the
Yeah.
last couple days that has helped me through these tough times. I mean, we're at a place right now, like I'm going to get MRI results for my wife in an hour, and we're going to have to make a decision on what's next in the journey.
Yeah.
But we do have that hope,
Yeah.
like
Always. Yeah.
he's in control. It's His story. For some reason, we're a part of it. Doesn't make it easier. It's just finding like peace in the pain, I guess.
Yeah.
It sounds weird and like, especially if you don't know God or have faith, like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But it's real.
Yeah. It's real. It's beautiful that you're able to share that story and that testimony. I think for so many people that have suffered or are suffering to know, that there's peace in the
Right.
pain,
Yeah.
and it
It's
does
just,
exist.
God, it contradicts itself. How can you have
Yeah.
peace and pain? Well, you do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great model for others, and it's interesting that be still and know that I am God. That's my one of my favorites too, and you just brought me back to a memory of when one of my staff gave me a little tile that had that on there. And I had it in my house, and I looked at it all the time, and I was going through a really, really stressful period of years of stress, chronic stress. And I remember I was actually sitting at a rodeo of all places in Montana, and I was supposed to be like having this great time with my family, and it was, supposed to be, fun, excitement. And I was so, so stressed and in like fight or flight. And I just prayed, I said, God, give me a sign. Like, I need something right now because I'm in this state that's not healthy. And I looked down, and the woman in front of me had on the back of her cell phone case, "Be still and know that I am God."
No way. There's your sign.
And I was like, okay, I'm okay. It's going to be okay. I surrender. I'll never forget it because it was just such a powerful moment. And that was my thing that I rehearsed in my head, and then for it to be sitting there. So, it's so true and powerful. And if you can go there and allow yourself to feel that, it can and help you through those hard times.
Right.
So, well, I want to definitely make sure we talk about special days. We've mentioned it a little bit, but, I love that you tied in the Bible to your experiences. It's what a unique book, too. I'm not sure if there's anything else out there like that as well. So let's talk about it. What inspired you to write it? And, what hope do you have for parents and educators to take away from reading it?
Yeah, I was inspired to write it. I was leading a small group of high schoolers at my church, and that was like it was my first year of teaching, and we'd sit around the bonfire once a week and just talk about life. And I would always share a story from the classroom, and they were like, "Dude, this story, like, I don't even understand. Like, these are wild. You need to write these down." So I started writing them down, and then I just took 12 of them that I thought were the coolest, and I started, I kind of modeled it after Love Does by Bob Goff.
Okay.
His format of his book is just like everyday life, and then he relates it to the Bible. And so I was reading that book during that time. And so then I would see all these stories unfolding in front of me, and then I would relay them back to what I would be learning through the Bible. And so I just wrote them all out. And my goal behind the book is for parents to find a little hope in their journey, and just know that they're equipped, and they have what it takes to be in this journey. And there's a little bit of humor. There's a controversial chapter, the red ball. But
I did read that yesterday. Yes.
I was naive. It worked out well. And then there's some more intense stories, but yeah, I think behind it all, parents can find just a little bit of encouragement for their
Yeah.
days. Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. That's great. And where can families find that book if they want to order it?
Yeah, that's on Amazon, would probably be the easiest.
Great.
Barnes and Noble, Walmart, but Amazon. Yeah.
Okay.
Or if you send me a message, I can mail you one.
Okay, great. Fantastic. All right. And now Unspecial, we talked a little bit about it, but is there anything else you'd like to share about your podcast and your guests? And you have amazing guests on there. I've been listening to it and really enjoying it, and I'd love to have you share a little more.
Yeah, it's kind of random. I just find it started out, I had all my buddies on, and then families I knew. And then it's kind of branched into the social media world, which before any of this, I was highly against social media. I didn't have any. So, but I just started reaching out to random parents on Instagram, and I follow their content and see how they go about their life, and then it would be intriguing. And so just we've been coming across a lot of powerful stories of parents, and that's kind of my goal, is just keep sharing it. And I've got a lot of feedback from parents when they share their story. It is therapeutic, and it's relieving. And that was a part I didn't know would happen. But even speaking with you about a cancer journey, like, I can see how it is therapeutic. Just talk about it. So yeah, we kind of dive into anything and everything. I try and leave the space open for the parents to go kind of where they want it to. I know going forward, I'm going to have a little bit more push to tie in faith more.
Yeah.
Because I think,
Nice.
that's where all the hope and all the power is.
Mm-hmm.
I was full transparency. I was convicted at church the other day that I've gotten a little wrapped up in the autism debate in society. So I'm going to kind of switch gears, and I'll still have those conversations, but
Yeah.
center it around God.
Awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I will definitely be sharing it with my clients. And, I have many clients that are very faith-based and would appreciate that. So I
Yeah.
think that's fantastic.
And it's on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube.
Okay, perfect. That's great. Fantastic. I highly recommend it. An Unspecial podcast. And I'd love to have us close out here just with, one last thing of encouragement that you can offer to parents that are feeling worn down or defeated by the system or by just their challenges. What would you say to them?
I would acknowledge that, you didn't pick this journey, and I see you in that. You may never understand why this is the journey you're on, or why this was handed to you, but I would encourage you to, God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. And so for whatever reason, you have what it takes. You keep showing up, and your resilience and courage it doesn't go unnoticed, and it's very impactful. And I think, just keep stacking those small wins. Like some days you're not going to want to, some days you're going to be like, I don't know how I'm going to get to tonight. I have those days. And I think, when you look back and you're like 10 years down the road, you'd be like, how did I get here? And you start to see like God had his hand in it, and there is a lot of good. And like going back to your day can be special when you look for God, like just in the simplest of things, like sky's blue, a little bit of sunshine. Yeah, just don't lose heart. Just keep fighting. Like,
Yeah.
you're seen and you're heard, even when it doesn't feel like it. And then ultimately too, there's a creator that loves you.
I love it. It's a great way to end. Thank you so much, Zack. This was an awesome conversation. I'm so glad we had a chance to connect and to meet you and to hear your story. And I'll be excited to see what comes for you. And we'll make sure to include all of those resources in our show notes so everybody can access them and check them out. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I'll see you on mine in a couple weeks.
All right. I'm looking forward to it. Sounds good. All right.
I'm dancing on the edge again. The wind is calling my name. I'm dancing on the edge again. This time I'm not looking back, babe. You can change me, you can tell me down. I'll be back goes in every place I fight. I break the molds with the rebels mind. I'm a hurricane of free, born mine.
The information provided on this podcast is for general informational purposes only. The content shared is based on the experiences, opinions, and perspectives of the hosts and their guests and should not be construed as medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment recommendations. The discussions and topics covered are intended to foster understanding and awareness of autism therapies, but are not a substitute for professional medical guidance. Before making any decisions regarding therapies or treatments, we strongly encourage you to consult with a qualified healthcare provider who can provide personalized recommendations based on your unique circumstances. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge and agree that the hosts, guests, and producers are not responsible for any consequences, damages, or outcomes arising from the use or application of any information during the show.